Good morning everyone, and welcome on board with myself, Scott. Phil's on camera with me this morning, and it's a beautiful, beautiful morning. It's very cold relative to the last few mornings we've been having out here. That's why I've got my beanie on, and we've been warmed up with the prospects of finding some lions. They've lion tracks that we've been walking down this road. We've been following them for just over a mile now. They've been zigzagging onto different roads, and we're hoping to find them. We have just driven past some impala though, and they were standing right on the side of the road that the lion had walked past, so that will help us to assume that the lions have moved a fair time ago, because these impala were very relaxed. They could be lying up nearby though, and I hope that's the case. Now, this morning we're going to have a new presenter trying out, and his name is Byron, and you'll all meet him shortly. He's a great guide, and I hope you all welcome him and send him through lots of questions and enjoy his safari that he takes you on. So there's Byron and Andrew out on another vehicle. And for those of you who may be joining for the first time, again, my name is Scott, and it's important to know that this is a live safari. This is happening this very second, and not only is it live, but it's also interactive. So if you would like to ask either myself or Byron, the other presenter, any questions, it's really easy. You just hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@WildEarthTV. Oh, look at this. This is beautiful. There's a saddle-billed stork flying past. A really pretty bird. And it's really big as well. And it could have just taken off from the Djuma dam, which has a live waterhole camera. We did go past the Djuma waterhole a little bit earlier, because the lion tracks were up and down in and around that area. But they ended up veering more north, so that's where we followed them to. We're on Impala Plains now. And a few other important members of our team who are also up and about this morning are Nikki and Eugene in the final control. So, without further ado, like I said, the lions tracks are heading straight down this road. We are quite close to our boundary with Arethusa, but thankfully we are allowed onto Arethusa, so even if these lions do cross, oh, they've all been sleeping here, and I'm actually going to stop and show you. There's a huge amount of lion tracks, and you can actually see where some of their tails were lying in the ground. Look at all those lion tracks. If we go further to the right, we'll see a few marks where, if you could zoom out a bit, there we go. Over here is where the tail of a lion, you can see that. Almost imagine the tail and the little black furry fur ball at the end, creating that larger depression in the sand. So these lions took a break here, but I'm sure would have continued down this road after their small snooze. Okay, well, how awesome was that? I hope you enjoyed seeing all of those tracks. And I wonder who it is, possibly the Nkahuma Pride, but we can never be sure until we actually find the animals. What have their tracks done from here? They appear to continue down this road, so will we. So much fun tracking any animal, but it can often lead us in a wild goose chase, but that's half the fun. If the animals had tracking devices on them, our job would not be nearly as exciting as it is. In some regards it would be easier just being able to drive straight to these animals that can be hard to find. is for me is to not get too excited, which is often the case. And even just back there, I stopped looking at the road for a few seconds. And now the tracks appear to have disappeared off the road. Lions and leopards will use the roads as much as they can, because just like us humans using a freeway or a highway, it's the path of least resistance. But highways will only take you into a general area that you'd like to be, not exactly where you'd like to be. So they then will use smaller pathways once the highways no longer take them in the right general direction. And I'm guessing that's what could have happened here. They could have veered off to the west, which has been their general direction. So I'm just going to check this boundary road here and see if they have in fact crossed. I'm guessing we are going to find their tracks on this road here. And to let you know exactly the temperature we are feeling here, I did say it was cold a little bit earlier. It's apparently 10 degrees Celsius, which is about 51 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is, I'm sure, true, but what we do have to factor into that equation is that the wind chill factor from driving on an open vehicle drops the temperature considerably by about 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, so depending on how fast you're going. So that does emphasize the weather and cool temperatures we are experiencing. I guess everything is relative. It's cold for us, but for a lot of you, the viewers all around the world, you may be in a lot colder climates than us at the moment. Okay folks, well, myself and Phil are going to continue searching for these lions, but Byron would like to introduce himself to all of you, and like I said, it's his first drive out here, so there's a lot going through his head, and I'm sure you'll all be welcoming to him and send him through lots of questions to make his morning as easy as possible. Enjoy, and we'll see you later.
Good morning everyone, and welcome to Djuma. My name's Byron, and I'm going to be your guide for today. We are sitting at the old hyena den at the moment, and as you can see behind me, there is an adult and has been resting here this morning. We had a very interesting moment as we arrived here. We noticed something actually coming out the burrow, and on closer inspection we saw that it was in fact a warthog, which is very strange for us. The hyena has been lying probably about I'd say 20 to 30 meters away, and the warthog stuck its head out, looked like an adult female, and she sat for a short period of time watching, scanning the area, making sure that there wasn't any danger around, and after about 5 minutes she stood up and ran out of the burrow. This is actually very strange behavior. I've never seen this before, and I understand that this burrow was in fact active, or this den rather was active a few days ago. So it would be interesting to find out if the pups are, or the cubs, excuse me, are still in the den. It's quite unlikely for warthog to go into a burrow or a den site if there are other animals around. I haven't heard of that type of interaction before, unless what can occasionally happen is there may be two entrances to this den, and perhaps the cubs are on the other side in another hole. Occasionally it may link up, but perhaps they are hidden on the other side, and the warthog slept in the den during the evening, and now I've gone off to feed for the day and spend the day outside. This hyena over here is not phased by us at all, completely relaxed. Just resting, possibly been moving around during the evening, trying to see if it could pick up on the smell or the scent of any kill. And now has returned back to the den. It may have just checked that the cubs are okay, and is resting for a while. You know, a lot of these animals are very active at night and can cover quite a large distance. So we don't really know what this hyena got up to, but I'm sure it did cover quite a bit of ground and is now just resting and relaxing. It's so exciting to be here for me. I haven't been in this Djuma area for quite a number of years. I think I'm sure a lot of you are curious about a bit of my background and why I'm here today. So I have worked in the Sabi Sands for many years. So it's such a wonderful place to be, and always great to come back. Been away for a little while, and now fortunately I get to take you around and show you some of this beautiful, beautiful area. Oh, leopard, a leopard. Oh, hang on. We've got a leopard. It looks like, it's moving directly behind the hyena, probably 40 meters away. Oh, this is exciting stuff. Hyena's up and running. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly try to see if we can follow this. So the leopard has just run off away from this area, but it looked as if it was quite nervous and skittish. It could possibly have spotted the hyena, and over the time, leopards don't like too much attention drawn to them. Let me see if I can find this leopard again. Move through quite a quick area. Let's have a look here. This is very exciting stuff. The hyena's running around. Wait, we've got the leopard again. It's moving through a thicket, and the hyena's chased him off. Okay, let me see. It's a bit tricky to try and get through here now. As I was saying, the leopard obviously doesn't want any attention drawn to it, and this hyena ran straight after the leopard, possibly also trying to get it away from the den site. Let's have a look. There's quite a big drainage line in between me and where the leopard has gone, so it's going to be difficult to try and follow from here for now. Let's see if I can make my way around somewhere. And it's I'm struggling to get a position. interesting. Just got an update that this leopard is probably the Tingana leopard, which is a dominant leopard on the Arathusa area, so not actually seen very often on Djuma. There's the wonderful thing about leopard is that they can cover a huge territory, sometimes bigger than what you would expect. And often leopard territories may overlap at times. There's usually clear areas that they scent mark, and they do like to use roads quite frequently, so that they can have a clear boundary and mark it so that other leopards know that they're in the area. Just trying to get through this thicket, see if we can't find where the leopard's gone. As I mentioned, it did seem quite nervous when it saw that hyena and ran off quite quickly. And we all know a leopard, if it doesn't want to be seen, is not going to be seen. They're very elusive animals. How amazing was that to see that interaction? Firstly, having the warthog run out of a hyena den, and then to see a leopard just strolling in. Passing through now is perfect for a leopard. Quite deep drainage lines, very thick bush. Just having a look to my left, there's a very steep drainage line. It's not going to be easy to get through there. I heard a brief Franklin alarm call up ahead, and that could possibly be because something ran past it, maybe the leopard or the hyena, both of which ran off in the direction which we are driving. Can't believe how lucky I am this morning on a first drive with all of you, and we managed to see hyena and leopard so quickly. These beautiful, cool mornings as we move into winter now are great for predators to move around. A lot of them do like to move around early in the morning, and because it stays a lot cooler for a lot longer, they tend to move around later into the morning as opposed to summer, where they will often rest quite early on because it gets so hot. Absolutely no sign of either the leopard or the hyena yet. To have all of you with me, and I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am so far. It's really an incredible start. I also know there are a lot of first-time viewers. I obviously told past guests and friends to join us this morning, so it's great to have all of you together and experiencing this with you. second and listen out. Often other animals may give us a sign that they've seen a predator, like a leopard or a hyena. Good morning to Oki. You just sent us a question on Twitter, and you asked if the hyena is dangerous to people. Definitely. A hyena is an extremely powerful predator. They, in most parts of southern Africa, hyenas tend to scavenge a lot more than hunt for themselves, but they do hunt a lot of the time, especially up in East Africa. They a lot of the predator density isn't very high in certain areas, so the hyenas do have to hunt for themselves so that they can get food. Hyenas generally would be quite skittish. They're very curious animals, but they are skittish. So they may come, have a closer look, sniff around, but if you clap your hands or make a noise, they may run away from you. However, if you corner a hyena or try and take food from them, then you are definitely looking for trouble, and they can be dangerous to people. They've got the most powerful jaws out of any predator in this area, so their crushing strength is incredible. They're fascinating animals, they really are. Just trying to listen out a little bit more for any signs. But we don't hear anything currently. Again, with that hyena running after the leopard, because a leopard is a solitary predator, they don't want to risk in any injury. If they get injured, they won't have the opportunity to hunt for themselves and possibly cause death. So a leopard tries to avoid any other predators. Just some Franklin calling in the drainage line, but it sounds more like just a morning call rather than a distress or alarm call. As I was saying, it's a leopard doesn't want to risk any chance of injury. So avoiding any other predators is key for the leopard. They would prefer to run up a tree or disappear into a drainage line, then stand and face a hyena. Even though the hyena will not be hunting the leopard, but often hyena follow leopard to see if they perhaps have it killed, which they may steal from them. Carry on driving through the thicket a little bit. Little steenbok just ran off in front of us, one of the smallest antelope in this area. I'm just checking the drainage line now. It's if you see it's quite steep down here, so it's very difficult to try get a vehicle down there. But again, a perfect little area for a leopard to run and hide away. Just a reminder, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to know, please get hold of us on Twitter at #SafariLive if you're using Twitter. Otherwise, feel free to email your addresses, your questions, on questions at WildEarthTV, especially for all those new guests watching. You can send through questions, or even if you'd just like to say hello. Still no sign of this leopard. but he really did not look comfortable with that hyena around. Leopard are very, very clever animals. They are incredibly intelligent. As I mentioned, quite elusive. So if a leopard was being chased by something, what they could occasionally do is they may run away, but then circle around to try and get out of view of whatever it was chasing them, or just find a little spot and hide and literally duck down into a drainage line or into a thicket, hide away, perhaps whatever was chasing them, walk straight past. They're very, very clever cats and so beautiful. It was amazing to see him this morning, and the light at the moment is amazing. Beautiful, beautiful sunrise. It's quite a cold morning in Djuma, and let's just have a look around here again. Some more. Good morning to Cassie in Tennessee. And she has just sent through a question. Cassie would like to know how long I've been guiding and tracking for, and where I learnt how to do this. I've been in this industry for almost 10 years now, and guided at one specific lodge for about 6 years in the Sabi Sands, just south of here. And an interesting story, but our co-presenter James Hendry is one of the reasons I'm here today, and that's because James actually trained me when I started guiding. So if I get anything wrong, it's because of James. No, we go quite a way back, and we spent many hours in the bush together, and learning a lot of the time at the same time, because I think one of the important things in the bush is that you're always learning. It's always going to throw curveballs at you, and you can never guarantee what you're going to see or what you're going to get, as we saw this morning. But as I said, spent a lot of time with James learning, and guided for about 6 years at one lodge, and now travel through most parts of southern Africa, guiding people from all over the world, which is fantastic, and getting to see different areas. But it's always special to come back to the Sabi Sands and spend time here. I really feel that this is one of my favorite parts of Africa. It looks as if the leopard has eluded us. Run off into the drainage line, and it's been very difficult to follow him, and we have had no sign of him again. Just going to keep driving around a little bit. Perhaps we're lucky and he pops out again. To Liz from Wisconsin. Liz just sent through a question wondering if the hyena and leopard would physically fight each other. It is quite unlikely, Liz, and one of the reasons is because the leopard is so, well, quite afraid of being injured. It does not want to risk the chance of being injured. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, leopards, because they are solitary, they cannot hunt for themselves if they get injured. So it's unlikely that a leopard would take on a hyena and fight them. But in saying that, you never know. There's never a set rule in the bush. And that's one thing I've learned in my years guiding. You can say one thing and the animals will do something completely different. It's unlikely that they would fight, but if it does happen, the leopard would have to be very careful of the strong, powerful jaws of the hyena. But and one of the benefits or what the leopard would have on his side is the speed, agility, and strength that they have. But it is quite unlikely that they would physically fight. The leopard would probably try and get away, maybe up into the safety of a tree. Sign of that leopard at all. He was not happy with that hyena being around and decided to get out of the area as quickly as possible. What we can do though is we can drive around and maybe see if we've got any tracks of this leopard heading out of this area on one of the roads. Best option would be is if I try to get us out of this thicket quite quickly and head around and see if I can't pick up any tracks of this leopard maybe heading out of the area. Why don't we see what Scott is up to, and if we get any updates, we'll be sure to let you know.
Welcome back with us, everyone, and what a start for Byron. How awesome is that? So happy that you all got to share that really interesting sighting with him. We ended up following the lion tracks very far into Arethusa, and I decided to abandon the mission because we were having broadcast issues from there, so we were getting no signal from this vehicle. So even if we found them, there was a chance that we wouldn't be able to share them with you. So I've decided to head back onto Djuma, onto safe ground, and give Byron a hand trying to find what I heard was Tingana. And really interesting that he is pushing deeper into the Djuma property. And let's hope Byron manages to relocate him. But even if he doesn't, just those few glimpses and moments that you shared with Byron and that leopard are so awesome. And it's the quality of the sighting often more than the quantity or the length of time in a sighting. So really happy about that. I must say, a little bit tricky to leave tracks. We followed them for so far. Those lion were moving huge distances. Anyway, at least we are still out here, and we could bump into anything else along the way. Driving so quickly after those lion tracks that Phil and myself are frozen from the wind chill from the vehicle. We were lucky enough that tracks of the lion were going inside a riverbed, which made them very easy to see, so we could drive very quickly to follow them. Anyway, hopefully the Arethusa guys managed to find them this morning, and at least this afternoon we could possibly head across to try and see them. So we're not far from Byron at the moment, and where he last saw Tingana. So we're gonna head across into that area and maybe we'll get lucky. So that is our plan for now. This long straight road is the main access road or boundary road. Djuma is on the left and Arathusa is on the right. And for those of you who are new to the show, all of these boundaries are essentially invisible boundaries. They are just roads, but the animals can move wherever they like. We, on the other hand, have got more limitations than the animals. But that's a necessity to ensure that everybody driving around these different areas has got not too much traffic or not too many vehicles working any given property. And that is why there are all the various traversing agreements set up between the different lodges, so that you can and do share land or space to traverse, but only up to a degree. And thanks for sending your question through. Jim has asked, do we have a GPS on the vehicle? Usually I do. I've got an app on my phone that somebody has made that has all the roads of this area, and it marks exactly where you're moving at any given point. And that really makes life easy, much easier than reading a map. But I gave my phone to Byron this morning so that he has access to that GPS, because he hasn't had time to familiarize himself with the roads and the property yet. So he has got an app that works as a GPS on my phone, and it can be really useful even for me. I know all the roads on Djuma very well, but sometimes if you are off-roading and following animals through the large and thick blocks, it can be difficult to know exactly where you are or where the closest road is that you may be approaching, and then it becomes very, very useful. So there's, in my mind, nothing wrong with using the technology that is available to us to make our lives easier. I'm going to continue down this long straight road. It's going to be the quickest way to get us into the area of Byron and hopefully Tingana. Failing that, this area we're driving through now is also an area where a female leopard called Shadow and her 8-month-old cub Sindile, as we, the Wild Earth family, have named him just for the time being until he reaches maturity, and then in all likelihood he'll be named by the guides of this area, but we've just given him our own name for now. Anyway, the two of them, those two leopards, have been spending a lot of time in this area, crossing between Arathusa and Djuma, so we could bump into them here at any point in time. Updates on the Game Drive channel to see if anything's going on here. Are there any other updates, guys? Any updates on WildEarthTV? A little bit. I think I may have seen some leopard tracks. Oh, have, and they look like they could be tracks of shadow. Now, just on our right hand side, difficult to see at the moment, but walking along the road in this area there have been a few pad marks of what looked to be a female leopard. It is difficult with shadow and a cub because the tracks are fairly similar in size, and up there you can see two tracks fairly easily, but when the tracks are in the shady areas it can be difficult to pick up all of the finer details of them. Anyway, we're going to carry on, but it's certainly this information is useful for us to put into the memory bank for later, and we'll possibly come back into this area. There have been a lot of vehicles driving around here. There have also been wild dog tracks in the area, so a lot going on in this area. Lions, wild dogs, leopards, a lot of predators on the move. It's just about trying to find them now. Well, morning Blair, and Blair would like to know why we can't follow those lion tracks any further into Arethusa, and we could, but because we don't have much signal there at the moment, the area I was going through, the signal chops and changes on a daily basis. Sadly this morning it wasn't very good, and I don't want to leave Byron stranded across here having to do the whole drive on his own, and I thought it would be also great to come back and see if we can find Tingana. So we will, like I say, hopefully get an update as to where those lions are found, or if they are found this morning, and we can possibly head across there for the sunset safari later on today. But trust me, it wasn't easy turning around and heading in the opposite directions of those tracks. We followed them from far, from all the way at the Vuyatela camp, which is the camp on Djuma. Literally from outside the final control room there were tracks of these lions, and they've come all the way probably about 3 miles where we left them into Arethusa. They've covered a huge distance. As I mentioned briefly earlier, there were wild dog tracks heading towards Djuma from Arethusa, and it was quite funny. As I was speeding down one road trying to loop ahead to where I'd find the lions' tracks, they crossed straight across a main road, this main road just further behind us, and I was trying to link ahead to find their tracks on another road, and I saw Sean from Arethusa flying around the corner, and he was like, "What you looking for?" And I was like, "Lion," and he was like, "I'm following tracks of wild dog that had actually been heading in the opposite direction to where I was going." But sadly we didn't bump into them along the way. But at any point in time we could come across those wild dog. They move huge distances in very short spaces of time, which makes tracking them extremely difficult. Often guides, when following tracks of wild dogs, will see the tracks and drive to the opposite end of their property where the tracks are heading towards, just to make sure they haven't already crossed out. So that gives you an idea of how quickly they can move. They can cross through an area without anyone even seeing them, leaving tracks everywhere in and along and in between, which if you try and follow each footprint you'll be there for days. You'll never catch up to them. But hopefully they're going to catch up with us, and like I say, sometimes the animals find us before we can find them, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have to take all the lucky moments we can get out here. A hyena track coming towards us there that I just wanted to double check. Now, anywhere from here where we are now, we could possibly bump into Tingana. I believe he was heading in this general direction, and the amount of time that's passed between when you last saw him with Byron and now would easily have been enough for him to get to here, provided he still is on the move. Ah, little steenbok. Beautiful.
Govern.
It's a little female, fully grown, so I should be careful of how I word that. She's a fully grown female, but it's just a very small antelope, the steenbok. I'm going to try and creep forward a bit, or is she going to pop back out? No, it looks like she's popping back out. Looks like she can't exactly work out what she wants for breakfast this morning. She's thinking about taking a nibble on those little bushes, but there we go.
Yeah, somebody she was left and south there, but it looks like it was just driving around and looking around there. I don't know what it was looking.
Okay, well, oh no, is it going to pop out again? No. There's too much thick bush, so we're going to carry on. We're very close to Byron now. He's still looking for Tingana, and he's actually on the same road that we're about to turn onto. I just want to update Aubrey and Texan as to what's going on, so that they have a chance of also helping us to relocate on this leopard. Such big distances and such short spaces of time that it's important to remember when you are looking for an animal or trying to relocate an animal to loop ahead and often try and forecast where the animal's gone rather than looking for each individual track. Who was with Tingana apparently crossed east over Rebecca's Road down towards Philemon's Dip, and then also Impala were alarm calling somewhere on Philemon's Cut line. Velma from Michigan, and Velma's got a really interesting update for us, and that is that she was watching the Arethusa waterhole camera last night, and at around 2:30 there was wild dog and hyena with some kind of a carcass there. Now I don't know anything about that, even though I bumped into Sean a little bit earlier. Morning, Texan. Texan's also on the hunt for Tingana now, so there's a few vehicles working this area, so really good that we've all teamed together and are trying to find this beautiful male leopard. Anyway, I didn't share any reports from Sean in Arethusa when I briefly crossed paths with him. Like I said, he was frantically following tracks of wild dogs in the opposite direction that I was following the lion tracks. So I don't have any updates for you there, but if we do hear anything, I'll be sure to let you know what was going on. Really interesting that the wild dog were moving about at night, because if you read in the textbooks, they'll say that they are daytime, diurnal predators, and that they typically don't move around at night. Them and cheetah are both the same. Sorry, I just thought I heard something. False alarm. But hyena, lion and leopard will be far more comfortable moving around the night than wild dog and cheetah. The fact though that the moon is very, very large, and even though it's not full, if we look at it now, it will show you that it still gives off a lot of light, and that is what would have probably allowed the wild dog to move after dark. So in full moon scenarios, when the moon is very bright like it is at the moment, even though it's not quite full, it's busy waning, so it's getting smaller and smaller. We had full moon about 2 or 3 nights ago. This would have provided enough light for the wild dogs to feel safe to move around in, as their nocturnal vision isn't very good. Okay, well thanks very much though, Velma, for sending through that update, and hopefully those wild dogs will pop up at some stage. They're one of the most awesome animals to follow, especially because we don't get to see them very often, but even if we could see them often, it's so exciting following them. They're incredible hunters and cover huge stretches of territory in search of prey, and will often run their prey down over long distances until they become too tired and cannot run anymore. Good morning, Michael Miller in New Jersey, and thanks very much for sending your question through. I haven't heard your name before on the show, so it could be that you're a new viewer, and if you are, welcome on board with us. Michael would like to know why wild dog are endangered, and for those of you who didn't know that, they are critically endangered. I think I can't remember the numbers of them in the Kruger Park, but there's very few. I think possibly only about 200 or 300 wild dog in the whole of the Kruger National Park, which is a massive ecosystem, but again, I stand to be corrected on those stats. Regardless of how many they are, though, they are endangered, and Michael would like to know why. If they're such successful predators, why are they not doing well? And there's a few contributing factors to that. One of the main ones is that they get rabies. Just like domestic dogs, they are susceptible to rabies, and because most parks are surrounded by villages, those villages' dogs may have a rabies outbreak, and when a domestic dog gets rabies, it has the opposite effect to rabies on a wild animal, and this I find really interesting. Rabies will make a domestic tame dog kind of go wild, and when there are no rabies outbreaks, we don't have any dogs coming into the reserve, but as soon as there is a rabies outbreak, we notice that their behavior drives them a little bit crazy, and they come into the park. And when they come into the park, naturally, if a pack of wild dog comes across a domestic dog, they will fight it. So will lion, so will leopard, and that way lion, leopard and even wild dog can get the rabies. Now, if one wild dog out of a whole pack gets rabies, because they're such highly social animals with lots of kissing and licking and mouthing, the whole pack will get rabies, and then the whole pack will often die. So rabies is one of the biggest killers of wild dogs. Another obstacle that they face in this day and age is space. Because they do have such big home ranges, they need space to be able to thrive, and a lot of the smaller parks or smaller reserves may not be big enough to accommodate for wild dog, yet they could be big enough to have lion and leopard and other animals living in them. And these are the smaller fenced-in reserves, which do provide huge, they all collectively add up to create a lot of safe havens for wild animals, but certain wild animals like wild dogs that need a lot of space cannot cope in those small areas. So those are a few reasons why they are endangered. And while we've been sitting here, it's been useful for us to just be able to listen to any signs or sounds that the bush may have been telling us, but we haven't heard anything. It's been silent. And what we can do is we'll continue searching and helping Byron to look for Tingana, the male leopard. And for those of you who have just joined, there was a male leopard seen by Byron not so long ago, and he was moving into this general area. So we're going to send you across to Byron and let you know how he's doing, and we'll catch up a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. If you've just joined us, we were sitting at the old hyena den this morning, and all of a sudden, well, there was an adult hyena lying outside the den resting, and all of a sudden a male leopard walked straight into the area. The hyena saw him, got quite interested and curious, stood up and then chased the leopard off. I think possibly because it was at a den site that the hyena wasn't too happy with having this leopard around. We got a brief view of him walking through the thicket and tried to follow him, but unfortunately we lost him. He moved down into a drainage line. It was very difficult to follow him. We drove through this block and tried to find if we could, or try to see if we could find him again. We came across some giraffe feeding inside this quite a thick area. We heard some impala alarm calling too, so we headed straight to where we heard the impala alarm calls, but still no sign. It's a very, very thick block, and I mentioned earlier, if a leopard doesn't want to be seen, it's not going to be seen. They're incredibly elusive, but what an incredible sighting. For my first drive with all of you, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? As I mentioned, that was a Tingana leopard, which apparently comes from Arethusa, is a dominant male on Arethusa, and doesn't come into this area too often. And an update I got was this could possibly be one of the first times he's been seen on Djuma, and my thinking is because he was quite skittish, maybe because he is in a new leopard's territory, and almost challenging the male in this area, he is possibly a little bit more nervous and very, very, very wary of where he walks and what he bumps into, and perhaps that is also why he ran so quickly from the hyena. a beautiful fresh morning here in Djuma. It was quite chilly earlier on, but the sun's up now, it's starting to warm up. Still a lot of bird activity. Just a great morning being out here. If you've got any questions, especially for the new guide in the area, don't forget you can email us on questions@WildEarthTV, or alternatively on Twitter, just hashtag Safari Live and send through your questions, anything you'd like to know. And hopefully I'll be able to answer them for you. We just did one more. We just did one more big loop around the area, having a look if we don't have any sign of that leopard. But we've had no sign. I think he's still possibly in that block and he's hiding from us. Or the hyena. Good morning, Virginia in Kentucky. Virginia's just asked an interesting question. She wanted to know, earlier this morning, while we were sitting at the hyena den, there were some warthog actually coming out of the den. There was a female and 2 or 3 youngsters following her out of the den. Virginia wanted to know if the warthog would harm the hyena cubs that are in the den. Virginia, we're not too sure if there are hyena cubs in that den at the moment. There was an adult outside, but there apparently hasn't been any sign of those cubs in that den in the last few days. So possibly the cubs have been moved to another den site. Hyenas do change den sites, and may occasionally have 2 or 3 den sites which they move to. Excuse me a second. We've just spotted a little daker. Beautiful little antelope. It's a male. You can see those small little horns of his. Moving around quietly. They generally are quite skittish. The daker, they move off very quickly. Very shy little antelope. A little bit larger than the steenbok. We did get a little glimpse of the steenbok this morning running off. Beautiful antelope. And quite interesting. There's I've read up, I've not seen it myself, but I've read and heard from 1 or 2 other guides that they have seen daker feeding on carrion or dead meat, even dead birds, which is very interesting for an antelope. Perhaps the reason for that is nutrient deficiency, and they maybe need some additional nutrients in their diet. So and that's possibly why they could do that. He's just moved through the thicket now and he's disappearing. It's amazing how these animals can all blend in to their surroundings and hide away, and especially these smaller antelope. They've got to be very aware, very alert of predators around, so they're very careful. Their sense of hearing is incredible, the sense of smell is great. And if they do need to get away from anything, they'll run off, and they're so fast and so agile. And that's often why we don't get to see little antelope like these daker. So Virginia, just getting back to your question, I hope I answered it for you. I don't think there are any hyena cubs in that den at the moment, and that's possibly why those warthog were down there. I think it would be highly unlikely for the warthog to go down into a den site if there are hyena cubs around. So I don't think that there's any, oh, here we go, there's a little steenbok, which I've just spoken about. Let's see if we can get a view of him for you. So yeah, I don't think there's a chance of that warthog harming the cubs, and if there were any cubs around that area, I don't think that female would allow the warthog to go down into the den. Have a look at that. You can just see there's that little steenbok, which is a bit smaller than the duiker. You can see beautiful little antelope. And that's it's a little female, and that's full grown, a tiny antelope, very, very beautiful. See those big ears, and just as I was saying earlier, the ability to hear in these thick areas is crucial. So a lot of these antelope have got great senses of hearing, and they'll listen out for any predators. Another interesting thing with these steenbok, this is one of the few antelope that mate for life. So they do stay together. They may occasionally be a few meters apart, 50 meters apart, but they'll stay in the same area. And the male and female are always seen together. Just move behind the bush a little bit. I'm going to go forward. He's just sticking his head out, looking for a bit of food. And you can see their camouflage is fantastic, and they will hide in the grass, lie down, and if a predator walks past, they will shoot up at the last minute and disappear, so the predator doesn't even have a chance to chase him. As I said, this is a little female, and just first off, if you have a look at her, she doesn't have any horns. With these antelope, only the males have horns. Small little horns, very similar to that male duiker which we just saw. Tiny straight horns, and you don't see any horns on this one, so you can tell it's a female, especially at this size. This is a full grown, this is an adult, so you would see the horns immediately if it was a male. Good morning to Molly. You just sent through a question on Twitter and asked what animal I am most passionate about. Thank you, Molly. It's always a tricky question, I think, because I mean, I'm really passionate about so many different animals, and I think that's part of the reason I do what I do. But if I had to pick one or two, it would be elephant. I absolutely love elephant. They're incredibly intelligent animals, and they can be soft and gentle and very protective and powerful in a matter of seconds. And the other one is a honey badger. Now, you don't get to see honey badgers very often, but they are definitely one of my favorites and one that I'm very passionate about. They're incredibly tenacious little creatures, and but they are very difficult to see. And but yeah, that's definitely, those two would be, I'd say, my favorites, and two that I'm very, very passionate about. Lovely little sighting at Steenbok though, and it's always great to see these smaller antelope moving around and spend time with them and see what they get up to. Occasionally, you know, because they are so small, they're hard to find, so it's wonderful to watch them and see them moving around, and especially to see a duiker and a Steenbok so close to each other, or just down the road, and be able to view both of them. That's really wonderful. What we're going to do is we're going to carry on driving around and see what else we can find. As I mentioned, it's such a beautiful morning at the moment, so I'm sure there's still be some animals moving around. It is still quite cool. Good morning, Tony from the Netherlands, all the way from the Netherlands. Tony's question was about the Steenbok, which we just saw, and as I mentioned, they do mate for life. And this question is quite interesting. A lot of people, a lot of guests always ask this: what if one of the members of the partnership, the male or female, get killed? Would the other one move on and find another mate? Yes, Tony, they would. You know, this survival in the bush, the main for success, and the main way to survive in the bush is to have offspring and to mate. So the Steenbok would definitely look for another mate. You know, there's always a number of Steenbok around, and you know, they're not born in a pair. They would have to find each other. So they definitely would find something else. Looks like we've got some tracks on the side here. Can't see too clearly. I'm going to ask Andrew just to maybe see if he can get a little glimpse for us on that side. I'll just reverse a little bit. I think there's some clearer tracks behind me. I'm just going to reposition a little bit. There we go, and you can get a glimpse of those. Let me just have a quick little look and see what these tracks are, and I'll explain to you. Okay, great. So those are some hyena tracks. It's sometimes a little difficult while you're driving to identify tracks correctly, but those are hyena tracks, probably from last night. Looks like one or two that moved along here. Adults, quite a large track, and the easiest way So just caught in the bush here. Easiest way to identify hyena or a hyena track, or the difference between a hyena track and a cat track. Any cat, whether it be lion, leopard or cheetah, the hyena track, the back pad. So if you had to look, if you could imagine possibly the palm of your hand, the pad of the track. With the hyena, it only has two lobes at the back, so it loops in and loops out. And then with any cat track, they've got 3 lobes, so it does 1, 2, and 3 right at the back. Driving around, scanning at the moment, seeing if we get any other signs of some wildlife moving through the area. I wonder if we don't head back to Scott and see what he's up to. Maybe get an update from him on how his morning is going.
Welcome back, everyone. And Phil and myself have been just driving around the roads in the general area that Tingana was last seen heading in, and I think Byron's doing the same thing. We're just passing him on our left now, and that's a good sign. But we're both trying to fine comb this area, and even though we are both driving similar roads at different times, the leopard could pop out on the road that I've just driven a minute after I've been there, and he could find it. So that's why it's important that we've concentrated ourselves in this general area, and I really do hope that we manage to find that leopard again. He's a beautiful big male, and I could think of no better way to spend the morning than with him. I've been stopping and listening every few minutes, as well, as that can often be a very good way to find animals, is to just listen to the bush, and you can often get told where animals are. Even if the leopard doesn't call, which it could, there's a lot of animals that will alarm call if they see it: monkeys, squirrels, impala. And by being in this general area and switching off every now and then, that can help us. So I've been doing that, but that hasn't provided us with any intelligence yet. But we will continue to stop and listen every so often. I believe there's been a bit of a debate on Twitter as to whether there were jackals or wild dogs at the Arathusa waterhole last night, and it's a good point. They could have been jackals. Apparently the jackal / wild dog were submissive towards the hyena, and just because wild dog will in some cases chase hyena doesn't mean that that's the case all the time. It depends on how many wild dogs are there, how many hyena are there, and importantly in this scenario, the fact that it was dark. Now, like I said earlier, hyena are going to be a lot more comfortable after dark than wild dogs, and maybe that's why, if they were wild dogs, they may have been submissive towards the hyena. But an interesting debate. They could well have been jackal. Jackal and wild dog are fairly similar in size. So it'll be interesting to know if you've come up with any conclusions as to what you guys think it was. Either way, some interesting debates going on. Well, this leopard was seen last heading in this general direction after you got a glimpse of it with Byron at the hyena den site, but there's been no further sign of his tracks crossing this road, so he could still be in the block to our right. While I drive here, I'm going to check very closely to see if in fact he has crossed over this road. There have been quite a few vehicles driving here, so that's not good for us, because it means they may have driven over the tracks, making it difficult for us to see whether it has or has not been here. But I'm sure Texan and Fanwell, his tracker, checked this very carefully. Places to search while we are intent on really finding this leopard will be up in the marula trees, which are the trees with big horizontal branches, which I'll point out to you. There's no leaves in them at this time of the year. He could be lying up in there on top of termite mounds, just like this one up here. There's a place where leopards like to relax. We've got a good vantage point from up there, so those are the places you want to be searching as we drive along. Or anywhere where you feel lucky, really. And while you are looking, I can't stress enough that you shouldn't be looking for a spotted cat. You should rather be looking for the shape of a head, or the ears, or a tail dangling down from a tree. So it's more shapes you're looking for than the actual animal. And the reason why I say that is that their camouflage is so good. By looking for a spotted cat, you'll often not see anything, whereas looking for a shape that's slightly out of place can be your best bet. Nobody home here on this termite mound, unless he's on the other side. Nope. No luck. Where are you hiding, Mr. Tingana? Look what we found instead. This is awesome. Just going to creep forward a few meters and then you'll see our two tall friends. Beautiful. And that's the beauty of being out here. Even though we are focused on looking for a leopard, you don't know what you may bump into, and here are some beautiful giraffe. It looks like two females, and things to look for when identifying the sex of a giraffe are those little horn-like structures on the top of their head. Well, this one I know is a little bit tricky to see at the moment because their head is behind the leaves, but as they move around, keep a close eye on the top of their head, and if there is hair on the top of those little horn-like structures, it's a good indication that they are females. So here we can see clearly it's very hairy on top. The males will be bald on the top of those horns, and they're actually called ossicones. So they are vestigial horns. They may have had long horns many years ago, but over time they have lacked the necessity to have long horns, and they're just left with these short little stumps. The males will be considerably thicker than the females' horns, probably about twice as thick. So the thickness or diameter of those ossicones, as long as the hairiness of them, will help you to sex giraffe. And I'm really happy we found them because they are so much taller than us. They've got a good vantage point, and if they were to spot an animal like a leopard, they would actually walk up to it and stare very intently in its direction, and that's a really great way of finding animals. When you see giraffe staring very, very intently in one area, you're almost guaranteed to find something there. Cheetah are another animal that giraffe will not be scared of or run from, and can often walk just meters from them while the giraffe keep a close eye on them. Well, isn't this beautiful? She's popped out onto Philemon's cut line, out in the open, and we're going to get some great views of her as she continues across. Interesting, you'll see both of her left legs move at the same time and both of her right legs move at the same time. It's a very uncommon ability or technique for walking. Most animals will have either a front left and a back right planted at any given stage, but the giraffe, with their very long legs and strange anatomy, have developed their own unique style of walking. Here we can see this giraffe is capitalizing on the old work of an elephant who's pushed down this tree, and that way made it easier for the giraffe to access the leaves. So cashing in on an easy meal. This is going to be beautiful again. She's walking straight out towards us. There's one little bush in the way, and then she should pop into the clearing again.